My name is Ramel Wallace, and I'm here to tell you about public art. At the end of the video, I'm going to tell you some of my issues with public art, so make sure you wait to the end.
If you meet me, I'm gonna show you some of the dopest people in the world.
I'm gonna tell my son, man, a man is what he makes in his society. So you gotta go out there and you gotta dig oceans. You gotta build mountains and paint 16 chapels and create the next innovation and inspire everyone that you meet.
Give you that Holyfield, hitting like Holyfield, mixed with some golden silver.
A few weeks ago, I was accepted into this public art sphere program for artists, where the city of San Diego was trying to teach studio artists how to get out of the studio and to get into the public art realm. One of the things they needed to do for us is to explain what public art is. If you don't know what public art is, these are those things that you might see when people are painting electrical boxes, murals that are outside in the city. This is artwork that the public and the community can be a part of, and that symbolizes and is an expression of what represents that community. You might see public art in front of museums. It's going to be out in the world, and it's going to be in a place where people can commune around it and understand it and be a reflection of who and what that community is, or who that community is. There are a bunch of examples of public art, and part of understanding public art is seeing all these plethora of examples. If you look up public art online, you can see tons of examples of what public art is. And basically, it's a way to preserve these feelings and emotions and experiences that we go through. So a lot of it is like learning how to fabricate, learning who to go to for the fabrication, learning where you can find these public art bids, and how to get in relationships with people that actually do the funding or do the fabrication or do the development, or know when these public art bids are going to come up. Here are a few of the key takeaways that I got from my public art sphere course, which was 3 weeks every single Saturday for 8 hours with about 30 people. It was put together by the city of San Diego and the World Design Capital, TJ San Diego. So it was a community of TJ and San Diego artists to teach us how to become state artists, national artists, and international artists through public art. One takeaway is to just understand what public art is. Know the history, know the different definitions, and know examples of public art so you can use that as a framework. Another really important thing is the 1 to 2% rule. A lot of the developments, I believe most of the developments in San Diego and California, have a 1 or 2% rule, where 2% of the budget that goes to developing this property or development needs to be allocated towards arts or an art program. So that might be a mural, that might be creative mornings in their facilities, that might be something that involves a creative or an artist. And that's me and you, especially if you're watching this video. So when new developments are happening within the city of San Diego or the state, you can reach out and say, you know what, I know you have this new development. Let me develop this email and pitch this idea to you. Or you can hit them up through something called Planet Bids, which shows everything that's happening and all the bids that are happening through the city of San Diego. Another really important thing we learned is how to navigate through RFPs and RFQs, and also what are the differences. An RFP is a request for proposal. So if it's an RFP, you're basically saying, this is the project that I want to present to the city of San Diego or to the developer, and this is what it's going to look like. Here are my ideas. Here are how we're going to implement it. Where an RFQ is an example of your previous work, the request for qualifications. You're basically explaining who you are and why you're interested in the project. What I really got a chance to sit into is, it's almost like writing a cover letter, especially when you write your letter of interest, which is always a part of your RFQ or RFP. Make it distinct to that project, give examples of why you want to work on that project, and make it specific to that community and to that area, and let the people know that are going to be reading this that you're going to get the community's input. It's so important to get the community's input and to input how you're going to do that in these RFPs and RFQs. But first and foremost, know the difference between an RFQ and an RFP. Another thing that they wanted to stress is that public art can be a career. You can not only look in your city or your state, you can look in other states. Once you get the handle of knowing how to fill out an RFP or an RFQ efficiently, you can go anywhere. You can go around the world. You can even check out these different developments, because a lot of cities and a lot of places have these 2% rule for development that is dedicated towards art. So you can follow these places around. If the project is not necessarily for you, you can start a business that does this for artists. Maybe you're someone that's very passionate about getting other artists' work, and you love filling out and writing RFPs and RFQs and helping artists out with that. Well, you can find those projects for artists, present it to your network of artists, and work together to land those proposals. So you can either be the artist, or you can be a organization that helps artists develop and get proposals for their projects that present public art to your community and to the world. Another thing that you want to get to know are the long-term impacts of your public art. So getting to know the fabrics and materials that last and that can be weathered, and how much those cost. Who has those materials, and how long it's going to take to get and install those materials. It's a little bit hard because you want to make a timeline where you get those materials at the perfect time. An important part that I didn't really think about until I was in the class is that the installation will happen after the construction is done. Because the construction will have its own timeline, and you want your materials and your installation to happen right after the construction is done. Another part is learning how to get those construction blueprint maps. If you have public art that's going to need construction maps, so how do you get those done? How long does it take to get that done? And where do you go to get construction blueprint mapping for your project? Another thing that you're going to want to think about when it comes to public art are the ethical and environmental practices and sustainabilities that are within your public art. Something that is sustainable, something that is good for the environment, something that enhances our experience with the environment is always a good thing to put into your public art projects. Go out there, be creative, expand your mind, and let's get some good public artwork and some more funding to the city of San Diego and to the county of San Diego and beyond. TJ as well. And I mentioned this earlier. If you're not signed up for Planet Bids, and it's spelled exactly how it sounds, you're going to want to sign up for Planet Bids, because the city puts all of its proposal for public art and then some on Planet Bids. So if you're on there, you're going to be the first one to know about the public art that's in your city, or if you expand it to other cities as well, or other spaces. I believe that each city has its own version of Planet Bids. Some you pay for, some are free. The San Diego version is free. Another thing, and last but not least, is to not forget about the network of people that come together. So that means getting to know the architects, getting to know the people that do fabrication, getting to know the welders, getting to know the people that are in city positions that can help you is really important to developing and being a part of public art. So some of the issues that I have with public art is that it's not big enough. A lot of times the budget isn't as big as it needs to be or could be, and that stops projects from being as big as possible. But I would love to see something that culturally represents me that's a huge statue. A lot of the public art that I see or experience is very abstract. Maybe I don't understand it. And for myself and people in my community, we would want something that's just straight to the point. And I think a lot of people with my perspective aren't in these conversations of public art and what it should look like. So I hope to be in those positions, be in those rooms, and expand on what we can do for public art. When I look at ancient art, which really reminds me of public art, whether we're talking about the pyramids or the Great Wall of China, but how can we make more public art that is similar? How can we make more public art that's similar to the ancient art that we always look back on time and time again? One issue that I have with the 2% or sometimes 1% rule is that there might be a development and it needs art, but it's not accessible to the public. So that artwork might only be on the property of that development. It would be nice, and I really encourage public art pieces to be outside of the development so that people at any time can access that artwork and experience it. My last issue is the budget. Once we got through the class, one part that struck me is that usually 20% of the budget goes to the artist if they're good. So it's usually about 10 to 20%. I'm going to say 15% in the middle is what the artist usually gets. So if it's a project for $126,000, a lot of that is going to go to the fabrication, a lot of that is going to go to taxes, a lot of that is going to go to the architect, a lot of that is going to go to materials and other things that come together in making that project. So the artist ends up getting not that much. So if the project and proposal is $40,000, the artist usually ends up getting $8,000. If the project is $160,000, the artist ends up getting $32,000. So it depends on how fast you can make these projects, how many projects you're making, and I feel like that can eliminate people that are on the fringes when it comes to how much they make or need to make to sustain their lives. Overall, it was a great course to learn, and I'm very interested in teaching people about public art so I can see people in my community develop things that influence myself and influence the youth and influence the future in a very positive way, and tell our stories in a way that reflects our experiences and beyond. So if you're an artist and you want to go from your studio to public art, let's work together to develop people in our community into public artists. Don't forget to sign up for Planet Bids and hit me up if you have any questions.
If you meet me, I'ma show you some of the dopest people in the world.
I'm gonna tell my son, man, a man is what he makes in his society. So you gotta go out there and you gotta dig oceans. You gotta build mountains and paint 16 chapels and create the next innovation and inspire everyone that you meet.
Give you that Holyfield, hitting like Holyfield, mixed with some golden.